The flight attendant looked down at me and said something I wasn't expecting. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Your meal isn't available." At first, I thought I missed her. I glanced up from my tablet and gave a small, polite smile. "I pre-ordered it," I said calmly. "Lobster bis and filet mignon." She checked her screen again and shrugged. "It must not have gone through." Then she walked away. Just like that, no apology, no effort to fix it, no explanation. And 10 minutes later, she returned with a tray, a dry sandwich, and a plastic cup of water. I stared at it for a moment. Then I slowly looked around the first-class cabin of Stratus. Air Flight 917, flying from New York to Geneva. 6 other passengers sat nearby, all men, all older, all dressed in expensive suits. And every one of them was being served caviar, champagne, and the exact luxury meal I had ordered. In that moment, I realized something uncomfortable. I was the youngest person in the cabin and the only woman sitting alone. My name is Ava Coleman. I'm 29 years old and I run a technology company valued at just over $2 billion. Most days I negotiate international acquisitions and manage teams across 3 continents, but none of that seemed to matter in seat 1. To them, I was just another young woman who probably didn't belong in first class. I had seen that look before. The quiet assumptions, the subtle doubt, the way people glance at you and silently decide you didn't earn your place. Normally I ignore it, but this time felt different. It wasn't just the missing meal. It was a dismissive shrug. The way she walked away before I could even respond. The way every other passenger was treated like royalty while I was handed a sandwich like an afterthought. So instead of arguing, I reached for my phone and I sent a message. 3 words. "Start review protocol." My assistant Marcus replied almost immediately. "Which company?" I typed back one line, straight as air. "Flight 917. Then I placed my phone face down and quietly ate the sandwich. The flight attendants barely looked in my direction for the rest of the trip. They laughed with the other passengers, refilled champagne glasses, offered dessert trays, but no one asked if I needed anything, and that was fine. Because while the cabin crew believed the situation was over, it had only just begun. Halfway across the Atlantic, Marcus sent me another message. Found multiple complaints. Apparently, the flight attendant who served me had a history in her file. Several passengers had reported her for selective service, favoritism, dismissive behavior towards certain guests, but the reports had never been taken seriously until now. Because what the crew didn't know, what no one on that flight knew, was that my investment firm owned 9% of Stratus Air. Not enough to run the company, but more than enough to demand an internal audit. By the time the captain announced our descent into Geneva, Marcus had already forwarded the report to the airline's executive board. Along with a request for a full-service investigation, the plane landed smoothly. Passengers gathered their bags and walked toward the exit. The flight attendant stood near the door, smiling politely. "Thank you for flying with Stratus." I stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked past them without saying a word. But when the crew stepped off the aircraft, they didn't find the usual airport staff waiting. Instead, 2 members of the airline's human resources department were standing at the gate along with airport security. Their smiles faded almost immediately. I didn't stay to watch. There was no need for a scene, no dramatic confrontation. Sometimes the strongest message is delivered quietly. Later that evening in my Geneva hotel, Marcus sent one final update. Crew suspended, full service audit launched. I looked out at the city lights and thought about how small the original moment had seemed. Just a missing meal, just a careless shrug, just another young woman being underestimated. But small moments reveal bigger problems. And sometimes the most powerful response is patience. Because the people who assumed I didn't belong in seat 1 that day had no idea who they were dismissing. And by the time they realized it, the consequences had already begun. The voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper right corner to switch to another voice.